Hey, Internet Child, how's it going?
Hello, fine, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing the stream. Yeah, I think we communicated on Twitter and wanted to get you on. I think initially Deji reached out to you, um, and he works for us. He does outreach for us, and yeah, I was just super excited about your profile because I was reading that you do geopolitical stuff. Obviously, geopolitics is a hot topic right now. So just yeah, happy to have you on, and maybe if you could give like a quick intro about yourself and kind of what you trade and what you're working on.
Oh, I'm mostly a political trader, but focused mostly on Ukraine because that's what I know most. And inside Ukraine, I trade mostly territorial markets. So where the front line is gonna move in the next day, in the next week, maybe in the next 2 3 months maximally. There should be some side of geopolitics around Ukraine, and I'm trying to diversify into geopolitics more in general. But and I'm also part of Finance. We are building on prediction market. We are building perpetual prediction vaults that are something like hedge fund on Polymarket. So you can buy shares of a vault that is managed by a trader, and this trader is gonna make a lot of trades and try to grow the value of the vault, and the value of the share is gonna grow with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. Like I'm looking at it right now. I think we also are spitting out like a similar product. It's not exactly the same, but it's very interesting looking at this. It looks like I love the minimal line. Um, maybe we could start off with this before we kind of deep dive into trading stuff. Just if you want to talk about Zeit Finance, I see. When are you guys planning on launching, and what does your team look like?
Oh, it should come in a couple of weeks, I think, maximally.
Cool,
Like on
cool,
our
cool.
team, we have 5 6 people are working very hard on it. We already have an internal product, we already have a beta, but we should have the final product in a few weeks, and we're gonna open it up gradually. So first, we're gonna launch some vaults that are managed by your team, by some algorithm for some, by some traders for some. Then we're gonna open it to a variety of traders that we select first, and then in the end, the goal is to make it able for anyone to open a vault and have his community invest in it. So, for example, a financial analyst or political analyst that usually lives of monetizing view or ad revenues is going to be able to open a vault and have his community invest in his worldview and make profit along with him if he's right. And like you said, yeah, I know that some teams are building something more or less similar. I saw that Polyfund was building something like that, but I think a big difference is that we are the shares of the vault are represented as ERC20 tokens with Zitefile, so it makes it very easy to plug it in the DeFi ecosystem. So we can eventually have leverage over the vaults, and that's a way to bring leverage and other DeFi products to Polymarket, which isn't really possible right now.
And what makes you bullish on funds? Like what about funds? This space kind of makes you bullish. Like again, I was talking to the founder of Gondor, and he was talking about like Gondor kind of operates as a fund.
Hmm.
So the way Gondor works under the hood is it kind of, they have like three funds which are kind of diversified in terms of risk exposure. There's super risky funds, like not, medium sized risky funds, like no risk funds. And, basically that's how they are doing the lending. So they facilitate the lending of your polymarket positions via these funds. And these funds are actively managed by trusted people, of course, yeah, probably people who work for Gondor. So but he was very bullish on the concept of funds in general. I'm just curious, like, what is your opinion on uh, this product offering and poly market? Like, what makes you think that funds are important in the poly market ecosystem?
Well, first of all, the goal is not for us to manage the fund forever. It's just a first phase, and we're gonna open it up gradually. And in general, yeah, funds are good because copy trading is very, very bad on play market. And a lot of people want copy trading. They're making copy trading bot, insider tracker, but it just doesn't work because the liquidity is too thin. And the real solution for that is, if you want to make the same trade as a certain trader, like, why not let him manage your funds directly? With the proper infrastructure, with the proper safety, you can do it, and it's gonna be a lot more efficient, and your incentives are gonna be a lot more aligned. Because when you are copy trading a trader, he has all the incentive to manipulate your bot. If you see that you have like 100 copy traders, you can very easily extract the liquidity from them. But if you have a fund and these people invested in you directly, then you get a fees on performance, so incentive to trade for them, and that's the financial part. What I think is also an interesting part is the social part, because there are a lot of analysts in the world on different topics, like on finance, on sports, on politics. Usually, these analysts don't make money by being right; they make money by having an audience. And a lot of analysts that keep being wrong all the time, and they still have an audience and still make a lot of money. It doesn't really matter, because if you word the thing in vague enough manner with enough ifs, you can seem to always be right and always rewrite the story. But with PN, it's more difficult. So I think it should be a very nice credibility metric for online analysts. They can open a fund, it's going to be public. If people trust them, they can invest in it. If they keep being right, they get more money, they get more credibility. I think it's a positive feedback loop to weed out like the fluff
Yeah,
analysts, the people that don't really have a clue but try to stay vague enough to stay in the landscape. I think it has interesting effect on the information space too, for this reason.
yeah, I was thinking about it too, right? I think the value of funds actually, and I'm curious on your take on this. I think the value on funds is that you know there's a lot of strategies when it comes to prediction markets that require large amounts of capital. I would say more so than maybe uh, non-prediction markets, right? Like I feel like you can go into a prediction market, like an equity market, whether it's crypto or equities, and you can kind of like make there's less. Sometimes there's less certainty around things, so there's more upside for people with less capital. But with prediction markets, I feel like, there's a lot of different things. There's about a lot of very certain outcomes or pretty highly certain outcomes that you could make a lot of money off of if you have a big enough bag. So that's where I think funds are like super useful, especially for this space. But I'm curious, like, if you thought about this or what your take on that is.
Yeah, well, you have both effect, because you have a lot of market with low liquidity where you don't really benefit from having a large size, but you also have markets like Ukraine ceasefire. It's basically 10% a month bond. It has been for 2 years, and there's huge volume, and you can really make bank of it. Like, I remember some trader called Joe Biden. He made, I think, almost 1 million on just this bet alone. And you see top traders that, like Carr, they have a total PNL of 600,000. So really, if you have the right liquidity and if you have enough capital, you can really perform well on some markets. But it's very selected. Then you have also all the market making and arbitrary strategies, and then benefit a lot from diversification. So I think also for this matter, it would be nice to have a lot of capital and to have a fund.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Let me just turn my camera on briefly, see if okay, it's lagging.
Yeah, no, it's working well. Can see you.
Yeah, 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 the problem is like whenever I try and turn my it's like sometimes it lags. I got to get better software, but like maybe I'll just keep it off for now. I'd like to turn it on, but I just so for anyone like watching, sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, I think funds are really interesting for all the reasons you said. I just think like there's when I first got into prediction markets, it seemed like there was a lot of capital requirements you know to make good money, and I think that funds are really useful for that. And I feel like there's a lot of certainty with certain outcomes, obviously, especially maybe more so than funds in crypto. Um,
Yeah,
so,
because
oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
you're always playing against degen, so there's always um, some bias in favor of yes at the lowest percentage. There are tons of markets that are 2% that really should be mm, 0.0.2, but they're gonna stay at 2% because people want to bet on the 50x, 100x. You can really exploit those if you have a lot of capital, and I think
Yeah,
it's going to stay that way for a bit. That's money
yeah,
that would go to the house in usual bookmaker gambling markets, but in prediction markets, it's gonna go to sophisticated traders and players and probably funds in the end.
yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. Um, so I think let's kind of shift gears a little bit. So that's Zeit, and you guys are launching soon. So that's and is there anything else we should know about like what you have in store? Any plans about Zeit that that you want to talk about? Um, in addition to what you've already said, which is already super interesting. I mean, again, we're building a product that's very much like this. It's a little
No,
bit
yeah.
different, but like I'm fascinated by the space.
No, I think I said most of what I had to say about it. I just want to bring attention again to the fact that the vaults are tokenized, so I think it's a very big use case that you can plug it into DeFi because it's useful for fun, but even if you don't really build big funds, you can just tokenize your account, and that opens a lot of possibilities in itself.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, so, okay, let's shift gears for a bit and go into the trading because you're also a huge geopolitical trader on
Right.
Polymarket. Um,
Not huge.
well, you're bigger than me. That's,
Yeah.
it's all about perspective. I think kind of you like to focus on the geopolitical stuff. So recently, you were talking about a tweet that I think you made, and I'm just curious if you want to kind of open it up. It's an older tweet, but you were talking about how basically the ISW just openly kind of defrauded Polymarket. And
Oh,
correct me
yeah.
if I'm wrong, but I believe it's because the resolution was somehow tied to this to ISW, and then it shifted. Um, that was kind of my takeaway. But I'm wondering if you want to kind of get into this a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand this.
Oh, yeah, it has been a big pain point of Ukraine territorial markets. Really, so in Ukraine territorial markets, you have to predict, for example, will the Russian army capture Pokrovsk before November or something like that. But there's no one source of truth about it, no official one. So we use some mapper, and the mapper that we use is ISW, and it's the same mapper for every map. And for example, when they color in red, like you can see in the tweet, a certain area, it will count as capture. For example, the Pokrovsk one, you see, the area that has to be taken was the train station right in the middle of the city. And this one for Minorad, it was right this little intersection that you see just under the bright red spot. Well, it turns out that on this day, I think it was the 31st of November at 11:30 p.m. They just made up some advance. They drew some red on their map that had no correlation with nothing happening on the ground. You see, ISW is very pro-Ukrainian mapper, but even pro-Russian mapper didn't put any Russian advance there. So, and not even the next day. And they just kept this little advance on their map right on the intersection point 30 minutes before the resolution of the market when No was trading at 99.8%, and then they removed it 2 hours after resolution, something like that.
Yeah, that is wild to me that this happens. I mean, like, is there any sort of solution that has been brought? Like what ultimately happened? So basically, most of the people lost when they were betting on this market. That was the ultimate conclusion of this.
Yeah, because tons of people were bonding no, because like you see, I don't know if you see perfectly in the picture, but Russian edge position were like 2 kilometers from the intersection, and there was 30 minutes left on the market. So obviously, everyone with big capital was bonding it at 99.8 cents, and just at this moment, they edited their map, but there are no associated report of anything happening on the ground. They just edited the map and cashed in on the market and reversed it like 30 minutes after the UMA deadline passed. And usually, when they reverse an advance, at least they color it in blue to show a Ukrainian counterattack. But there, they just deleted their edit. So it was 100% intentional, I can say. And they
It-
even like ISW got caught doing that because this tweet blew up and other tweets about that blew up. So 2 days later, they issued an apology citing some unauthorized change to the map, but they didn't really get into it. They didn't really say like who, how this change was made, why, just some unauthorized change. And about the solution, like you said, the solution that Polymarket found was to put a 24-hour delay on the resolution. So it's one full update cycle after you see this bright red area is on the map. It's all the map. The changes are colored in the first
Mhm.
24 hours, and then after 24 hours, they are colored again in the clearest red. And they basically put a 24-hour delay to wait until then. But I think it's not ideal because they already showed willingness to cheat, and now they're gonna just cheat in more subtle way. For example, there was this market on Siversk, and they really didn't correlate as captured by Russia for like 10, 15 days, even though there was geolocation of Russian raising flags everywhere in the city, and even the most pro-Ukrainian mappers had put it in Russian hands. But there are a lot of ways they can manipulate the map a little bit more subtly if they want to. And I think the best would be to use some majority vote of three mappers. We have tons of mappers and you can war. ISW I think is pretty bad in itself, but like even if you take a good mapper, you can always say they could be tempted to rug the market. So I think the ideal is to take three mappers and like when two agree, it as yes.
Yeah, and I think you talked about this too. It's almost like a whole new, like it seems like the most successful traders. I think you mentioned something along these lines that a lot of the most successful traders are the guys who are able to spot these mispricing like situations. They're looking beyond just the text that they see when they go to the market, when they navigate to the market. It's like, okay, well, how likely is this market? How likely is there going to be like an event like this that happens on this market that's going to just end in, you know, chaos? So I'm just wondering, like, if you have any tactics for maybe for spotting kind of mispricings, right? Being able to sift through that, if that makes sense.
Spotting mispricing in general, I don't know, but like you say, to protect yourself again against this sort
Or
of catastrophic event. In general, when I buy no on a territorial market in size, I try to exit before the end, like maybe at 99 cents the day before, because you never know when they're gonna do it again. So I
yeah,
gotta be careful with that. And for spotting mispricing in general, there's no one size fit all tactic. You just have to look at the front line, you look at the news, and you make your own opinion. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're not. There's not one technique to know where the front line is gonna move. No one really knows, right? You can just make a better guess than some people.
would you say that most of your like how many of your most successful trades have been based off of rules, essentially? Just
Of
like
rules.
yeah,
Mm,
I guess what I meant mispricing, I was really talking about rules. Um,
yeah.
but like, how many of your most successful trades have been just deciphering the rule in a way that other people have not deciphered it, or kind of, like I guess I'm trying to kind of get into this, kind of like an adjacent question to this whole, you know, um, failing that happened. But yeah, if you kind of
Yeah,
want to talk
there
about
have
that.
been a few of them. Yeah, there have been a few of them. For example, yeah, you see a lot of these capture markets. Sometimes there are labeled as will Russia capture Pokrovsk or will Russia capture all of Pokrovsk? and you got to look at the rules, and they are very different. For example, the all of you need to have every part of the city, every part of the administrative border of the city painted in gray. And when you know the mapper really well, you know that they basically need a geolocation for to even have a chance to paint an area in red, because they tend to lean pro-Ukrainian. So like the bar is really really high for fulfilling the condition of this capture all of Pokrovsk market, for example. So these one I always tend to short them, because as long as they've been introduced, I think for 5 months, I didn't see a single one resolve because of this rule.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
also you had a very interesting market on whether Ukraine would refuse to enter NATO, and you had to look at the rules, and the rules were not very clear, but they were saying that you need an official announcement from the Ukrainian government, and Zelensky talked about it in a financial Times article. He said he was ready to refuse NATO membership in exchange from some U.S. security guarantees. But the rules also mentioned that uh, an example of such a clarifying agreement would be the agreement on territorial integrity that happened in Yugoslavia before the end of the war between Croatia and Bosnia, I think. And I looked at it, and it's not just an article in a journal. It was an actual treaty that was being signed as a
interesting.
condition for a larger peace treaty after that. So it really didn't qualify, and it pumped to like 30% because a lot of people thought it was already a yes just because he said it in the newspaper.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's like as I've been diving into prediction markets, I find that a lot of times the mispricing is not from people's lack of understanding about the potential outcome, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
It really does come from like these small things like a misunderstanding of the rules or a misunderstanding of how things work. There was one mention market that I was trading where it was, I think it was supposed to be like the first speech of the president of Syria, like the first White House press conference. And he never went to the press conference. So the whole market resolved no. And there's like stuff like that where you really get the crazy like opportunities, right? Like that, like not the high probability plays, but the crazy upside opportunities, I guess. So it's
Yeah.
just do you find that when you're trading these geopolitical markets, do you think that the other people trading them are often like have a lack of understanding about what the outcome is going to be, they're bad at predicting, or do you think that's not really a factor?
No, I think they tend to be bad at predicting, but it's not the only factor. There are like at least four layers to understand real market. The first, you have the title that tell you what the market is about, but then you have to read the rule, and the rules are often quite different from the title. But then you also have the context of the oracle resolution. For example, you can read the rules of some market like the one you're displaying, like will Russia enter the Bropilia, and you can see what enter means, but then you gotta know about ISW. What do they tend to include? How hard is it for them to update the map? Is the context around the oracle? You have to know how they work, and then you have also. Well, it does really factor for this type of market, but then you have a fourth layer of knowing UMA precedents. For some market that are controversial, you have to know how UMA will resolve it, and usually they go by a precedent. So you have a lot of markets with similar structure that already resolved. If you know all of them, you have a big edge on knowing how the human dispute should resolve. So you
Yeah,
have like four filters, and I think from the first one, yeah, a lot of people talk about the predicting, but then you have the three other one, and it's at least half the skill.
interesting. Yeah, and this market is one that you're currently trading, right? Or you just traded it. I saw you
Uh,
post.
like this one, yeah, yeah. I don't have a bet on every city, but I have one on her son. Not right now, but I'm waiting for it to go down maybe to 6% because usually these long term years they keep going down, 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 and then they start going up slowly when there's activity. So I think you can wait until 6% for Kherson. Um, yes, Slovians, there's interesting trade on it also because it's
Oh,
part of Donetsk Oblast. So if there is a peace treaty, according to the condition that Russia set out, Slavians will have like the rest of Donetsk will have to be transferred to Russia. And if you read the rules, it said that if the city come under Russian hands through a transfer, it will still count as yes. So you have to put the ceasefire bonus in it. This is for June, but if it was till the end of the year, the odds of ceasefire and the odds of Slavians being captured are basically integrated into one another. So there are some
interesting.
interesting arbitrage around that, around all the cities that are situated in Donetsk.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And again, it's kind of a good example of what you're talking about. And this is like a very in-depth rule set. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just looking like not every set is like this. I haven't read through it, but I mean, it's like not every set is like this text heavy. Um,
It's because there are a ton of modifications. They are very controversial market, and I can tell you like at least two paragraphs that were added while I was already trading it, and I know why. There is the 24 hours or the one cycle rule that is added somewhere here, and there's also any continuous shading, and you have all the different categories because ISW changed the categories and they added some map layer that's called infiltration. You don't really know what they put in it, but sometimes it's a capture, sometimes it's an infiltration. It's not really clear, but it's supposed to denote levels of control. So for enter market, you can have any level of control, even an infiltration will trigger it. And for capture market, they have to be painted this red, as in like consolidated information hand. So yeah, this is just a lot of modification accumulating over the months and years of trading these markets. It wasn't that big when it started.
do you have any tools that you like to use, like tools in the ecosystem that you go to specifically for these types of markets? Or I think you mentioned earlier you also are kind of like a gut feeling trader. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm curious about maybe tools that you use and maybe a little insight into like how what your initial strategy is when you're trading.
No, I'm not very sophisticated on the tech side of prediction market. I don't use a specialized trading terminal or anything like that. But on the no, I use a lot of external sources and tools, of course, to know more about the front, know more about for what's happening in the political sphere. Like it's easier to follow probably simply on X on YouTube. You get the latest news. If you follow it for long enough, you get a feel for what will happen. But for the map in particular, there are a lot of good mappers. They all have their own maps online, like Zodiac maps, AMK mapping. There's also military summaries, a very interesting map because it aggregates all the other mappers. You can see all the geolocations on it. Of course, there are tons of Telegram channels that publish geolocated clips, and I don't do that, but I even have friends that geolocate the clip themselves. So as soon as some unit publishes some drone footage, some drone video of some soldiers being shot down. They look at the surrounding, they look at the satellite imagery and try to draw a line and guess where it was located. And if they get the location first, then they can place a bet and then publish geolocation. And then the mappers will update. This is very profitable, but it takes a lot of time. I don't do that because I don't have time to do that.
Interesting. Yeah, I so it's like one of the tools I we might be doing an interview later in the week with Pizza Pentagon, which I know has blown up on X.
Mhm.
But I know they do a lot of this mapping stuff. But I'm I think it's pretty cool when I look at it. But it's interesting some of the tools that are developing in this ecosystem. So yeah.
Yeah, Pizza Pentagon Watch is he started adding a Ukraine map overlay to his map. He started, I think, adding the deep state map overlay, but then deep state map complained that they were using his overlay for gambling, so he switched to another one. But another one complained also. I suggested that he try maybe military summary, but I think he settled on something like UA control map, and for the moment it's good. But you know, a lot of these people don't like. Well, a lot of people don't like when you trade on the raw. So it's got a lot of pressure from all these mappers. that got pressure themselves from their audience.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, apologies for the background noise here. I'll mute, but I guess I wanted to touch base like on that Pizza Pentagon stuff. He
Mhm.
blew up because of uh, Venezuela, right? He like there was one tweet, there was one alert that he made for that market. And I'm just curious, like, if you were trading the Venezuelan markets as well. If so, like, what market were you trading? Because obviously it was a big week in geopolitics. So I'm curious on if you were involved in that.
Yeah, I was trading the. I wasn't. Yeah, I was trading the Venezuelan market even before. I traded a lot of no on Maduro out and on the military intervention because we are on the Christmas period. I just didn't think that there would be any intervention before Christmas and before New Year, just for PR reasons. So I traded no on that. Then I stopped trading no as soon as New Year passed, and like I was right not to do that. Um, yeah, although I didn't think the war would come this fast. Uh, from the move that they are doing, seizing the oil tankers, placing Venezuela under blockade, I thought they were trying to build pressure to bait a first strike from Venezuela, but turns out that they struck first. I didn't see it really. And yeah, of course, in the wake of the big happening in Venezuela, you had a lot of hype on the market, so you have a lot of mispriced markets. For example, you had a market that was asking, will a new election be held in Venezuela before January 31st and before March 31st? And even for March, I think yes was at 38%, and I think it was huge. It's way too much because even if there was some temporary government, these usually take at least 6 months, maybe a year. Like for example, if you take the precedence of Libya, I think it's lasted 17 months. The temporary governments there before a new election. In Iraq, it lasted 12 months. In Ukraine, after Maidan, that was relatively peaceful coup. It lasted 5 months. So it was very mispriced. It has repriced. Yeah, it was repriced immediately, and I didn't have time to put a lot on it because I was waiting for some other bets to resolve. So I shielded it. Maybe some of my followers bought it. I hope so because I couldn't buy it really like I wanted to. So
Yeah, it looks like it's still kind of mispriced. I mean,
it's not
20%.
20%. Like
Yeah.
it's below 5%, I think,
Oh,
for
so it went
March.
down. It's just not showing.
Oh no, no, I was saying the real probability for me is below 5%.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a good. It looks like it's still a good opportunity. I think if you wanted to jump in. Obviously,
Yeah, but you
January
know.
looks. I mean, January might be too high too, for being honest.
Yeah, but that's
Um,
the cost of capital. You don't really want to lock your money for that long on 2%. There are better opportunities. Like even the Ukraine ceasefire, I think the eternal bond is still at 4%. So you better put it on Ukraine ceasefire at this point by January.
yeah, yeah. The Venezuelan markets are pretty interesting. I haven't looked at any other. I mean, this one's actually still a good market to look at.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably a few in here. Have you been looking at the Iranian markets at all, or some of the adjacent kind of political things that are happening here? I tried to look into Putin because but I think that he might be a little too removed from the whole situation. But are there any kind of adjacent markets to this Venezuela event that you're looking at right now in other
Mm.
countries?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at Iran too, but I don't have a lot of knowledge on this area, so I'll have to do more research. And if I find a good opportunity, I will invest. But oh, like you see, Khamenei out as supreme leader by January. Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
this
there may be
yeah
some overpricing here, like in the wake of the big happening again. But I don't know. I would have to really look into it. I'm not gonna give advice on that before I do my research. What I can
yeah, it looks
really
like
make bets about without doing any research is Ukraine because I know about it already. The rest I need to do some research before.
yeah. Let's look at Ukraine too for a minute, because
A
that's kind
lot of
of
interesting bets here.
like would you say Ukraine is your wheelhouse basically? I think that's my impression, but I'm
Yeah.
yeah. Let's look at the Ukrainian markets for a minute. And I love the Ukrainian markets because I think we were talking about a little earlier. Like surprisingly, Ukrainian markets are, they get good volume, but I feel like now is actually the time to look at them. So I'm just curious, like, what are you currently looking at when it comes to these markets, or are you looking at anything?
Oh, well, the market I was looking at very recently was the Christmas truce one. I don't really understand why, but basically, the Kremlin spokesman announced that there wouldn't be a Christmas truce, but the market for a Christmas truce proposed by Russia in January 6, I think, was still at 14%, and right now it's at 1%. But like yesterday, it was still at 10%.
Is this the right? Is this the one, or is it a different one?
Yeah, it's this one.
Oh yeah.
It
Oh
was a really
wow.
interesting one. Uh, what's an interesting parallel too for an arbitrage is I think the Russia x Ukraine peace parallel that you see on the right of your screen.
Oh yeah.
You can click on that. The peace parallel. No, it's not this one. Just the one just below.
Oh, just below this one right here. Oh,
No,
peace
it's not there,
peace
but it's called the
referendum.
Ukraine peace parallel.
The Ukraine peace parlay.
If you
Let
can
me
look
look at
for
that.
it, there's
Um,
something. It's pretty interesting in the rules.
Let me look at it. Is it down there? I can't even see it.
No, it's not anymore. It was in on the last page, but when you clicked it,
Oh, I
there's
see.
the
I'll
market
just look
here.
at it. Here we go.
Yeah, if you
Oh,
see, if you look at the rules, just need to refresh myself, but I think it's a good yes against the ceasefire no. Because if you look at the parallel rules are that Russia agrees to a ceasefire with Ukraine. So if you take ceasefire no, you can hedge against it. Ceasefire no right now is at 45 cents, I think. Yeah, 55 cents. And
interesting.
the other condition, they kind of go along with the ceasefire realistically because you have Ukraine agrees not to join NATO, but Russia has told time and time again that they are not willing to agree to a ceasefire and this isn't solved. So maybe they would, like in some future where they lose the war very hard, but it's not going to happen before the end of the year. And same, Ukraine signs a peace deal with Russia. Like Russia said very clearly that any ceasefire would only come after a peace deal is reached. There will not be like some preliminary ceasefire. And they've been very clear on that for a year. So I think if you have a big bankroll, a good strat, like for not huge profit, but decent, almost guaranteed profit, is buying a lot of yes on this peace party and corresponding no on the Ukraine ceasefire by
Interesting. Yeah.
2026.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a good. So what? Yeah. So basically, you would get exposure to both of those, I think.
Yeah, because this is kind of a rewarding of the Ukraine ceasefire. It's like, will will there be a realistic Ukraine ceasefire? Because any realistic Ukraine ceasefire this year would look like this. There would be an agreement for Ukraine not to join NATO, and it would be a peace deal. I'm really not convinced that there will be a ceasefire this year, but if there is, I'm almost certain that it will respect these conditions.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think yeah, some of these are. I mean, it's just fascinating to listen to like you just dissecting the rules, because even as I like, when I'm jumping into a market, and this is probably good news for people who do trade by this. Um, there's a lot of people that just take gut guesses basically, and just like like maybe briefly look at this stuff, and then they'll, but it's like, oh yeah, this will happen, but they don't think about it as much. So I feel like there's still a lot of capital coming in, like new capital that's coming into the prediction markets that people can take advantage of.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of capital that also just read the title and not even the rules. Like you see it sometime. You see it in
Yeah.
the chart.
Do you
There's
think
some.
that in? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said there's some event that, like by the rules, doesn't have anything to do with the resolution of the market, but by the title it's kind of linked, and you get a big spike. And then everyone realizes it's not gonna resolve and goes back down. So there's a lot of inefficiencies there around this still.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think there's a lot of efficiencies. Do you think that this will stay the same, or do you think like as prediction markets move more into popular culture, it'll be harder and harder to find these opportunities? Or do you think
In,
it'll just be easier? I guess it goes both ways.
uh, it depends. Well, the more capital you get, the harder it becomes. But the more people you get, the easier it becomes. So if you get a lot of new users, low capital, then I think it's gonna be easier for a time. It was like you know trading altcoins in 2021. A lot
Yeah,
of retailers come in that don't have huge bankrolls. It's, it's easy to take money from them.
yeah, yeah. I
So
think
if
so.
prediction market become really popular, I think it will be good for traders for a time, and then after that, of course, there will sediment and like big players will start to take most of these opportunities. But for a time, I think it will be good for established traders. Then it should be harder.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think okay, so we have there was a comment, and I just wanted to get your opinion if you have thought about this market at all, which I think is the China Taiwan market. So Nietzsche thinks that it's going to basically go up over the next year. I'm curious on if you've looked at this market, and what your take would be. Let me just pull it up. Um, let's see, Taiwan. I think I can just take the link out. To be honest, Taiwan. It's will China
What
invade
are the odds?
Taiwan?
What
27.
are the odds for 2020? Like for this year?
Let's see. Will China? Let me look it up. Will, will China invade? Hold on.
But, I think it's one of these markets where you better look at the rules because there were a lot of markets around Venezuela with this structure, and I think the U.S. invade Venezuela, for example, didn't resolve at all
Hmm.
because what happened didn't count as an invasion, and there's a lot of things that could happen in Taiwan that we could naively like qualify as an invasion that would not resolve the market. So you have to look at the rules.
Yeah, I mean the rules. I mean this is for the 2026 market, but I think it says yeah, territory under the
Yeah, it's
cancel
about
out.
the intention of establishing control. So
Yeah,
they like decapitate the government, something like that, or they launch a blockade or a campaign of strikes. I think this will not resolve. I'd say it's probably overvalued, but you know, maybe if US really went into a war with Venezuela and had gotten tied down there, along with Ukraine, then China maybe would have felt more free to go for Taiwan. But right now, Venezuela went so quick and so well that I don't see them going for it. But really, it's not my area of expertise. I can't say for sure. But if I had to bet on this one, I would bet on no at this rate.
so I have one more question from the crowd. That one more market they want us to look at, or you to look at rather, and it's let me see if I can find this market. Um, he says that Israel Insider just traded this today, and
Um,
it's Iran strike until the 31st. So let me see if I can pull this up. Iran strike by the 31st. I think he's talking about this market right here. Um, currently, it's at what? Oh, he doesn't say which 31st, but I'm assuming he's talking about January.
mhm.
Currently, it's at 15%, but the rules are let's see. This market will resolve drone missile strike on soil. For the purpose of this market, qualifying strike is defined as the use of aerial bombs, drones, missiles, um, or missile drones, which are intercepted, like surface to air missiles.
Mhm.
Actions such as artillery
He's
fire.
telling you the other one in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the other one. Oh, Israel strikes Iran. Okay, let me pull that up. I do like these um, restream because you can pull the comments up like this, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it had a
Uh,
big spike, I think, and people suspected an Israeli insider because he only had one trade on his profile that made lots of profit, and it was also related to Israel and some strike, I think, wasn't on Iran, but it was some market that was very similar to this. So they suspected insider activity, and I can't tell you if this one is an insider, but I can tell you there are insiders betting on war markets. Like I know there are soldiers in Russia betting on the war that they are participating in. And I guess there are even more soldiers in Ukraine doing it because it's easier for them to on ramp into crypto because they don't have sanctions on the payment processing. So
yeah,
it's definitely a thing. Like there's insider trading inside the army, there's insider trading at every level of command, even for small sums. Like I
yeah,
saw some tweets from Zach XBT that was very incredible that someone would insider trade on Polymarket for 13K, I think it was. People do it for way less than that.
yeah. It's interesting. Like, yeah, because that happened recently. People said it was Barron Trump, I think, but and
Yeah,
it's funny. Like we were
like
talking
the
about this.
usual meme.
Yeah, like new accounts always know what to do, right?
Mm.
Like as soon as you see a new account, and we were talking to the Polysites guy, and he basically confirmed this, the founder of Polysites, and he was like, "Yeah, usually it's like, I mean, the best way to spot an insider is fresh wallet created, immediately just jump into a huge leverage position."
Yeah,
I mean, this is the top yes holder, right here. Um, so it looks like they got Rico Suave 666.
and look at his closed position.
Let's see.
It's all Israel, and yeah, the only one that lost was not related to Israel. So,
Interesting. Yeah, U.S.
but
military.
yeah, the multiples aren't that huge. Israel military action against Iran by Friday. This one is very suspicious. You see.
Yeah, yeah, it does look a little suspicious.
Yeah, and the bet was like 33K. Maybe it's rich, but that's not the kind of money you put on a 1 to 5 chance if you don't have some kind of information.
yeah. Let's see if
But
top holder. I think top holder for March is Don Joe. Obviously, this guy looks like he's a little less. Maybe this is the top holder.
But I think there's also a lot of insider hysteria because it makes really easy and really good and eye-catching content on Twitter. So as soon as a big wallet purchases, like as soon as a new wallet purchases a big position on any market, is immediately labeled as an insider just because it will farm clicks and people know it. And if he happens to win, which could happen like 50% of the time if they bet on 50% of the market, then he's definitely an insider and people are gonna follow his every move and call it an insider from the time he won a coin flip, it's a big bankroll. So something like that happened on the Ukraine war market, for example. There are some markets around Pokrovsk and Kupiansk that were very controversial because the area that was supposed to be captured was already captured in reality, according to most mapper, but it wasn't captured according to ISW. And some guy created an account, I think it was called Odridi back then, and put like 15,000 on Pokrovsk. And just the day after that, ISW updated their map and he did 3x on it. And then he put again like 15,000 on Kupiansk, and then again it was the same situation where ISW refused to update to reflect the real situation, and just after he put his bet, maybe 2 3 days after that, they updated. So everyone thought it was an ISW insider, but turns out that if you check his PNL today, is in the negative, and he lost almost every one of the following bets. He just had a very big bullish bias, and when things like stopped happening, he just lost all his money.
Yeah,
So fake insiders.
yeah. That's a whole nother thing is the fake insiders. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
Not,
it's. Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Go.
I said not intentionally fake. They don't LARP as insider. I thought you could do that. but it's mostly it's easy content for calls, so you have a tendency to overestimate with an insider and see insiders everywhere because it's a free tweet.
Do you think? I guess my last question before we go is a lot of people are saying like insiders are a feature of prediction markets. Um, I'm torn on that. Obviously, that's a very confusing statement. What's your opinion on this? Just kind of like a general like prediction market industry question, I guess, is what is your opinion on this take? I think Brian Armstrong said it recently.
No, I think they are. I think they are. And you're betting on an event, well, if the insider can't change the event, then if you predicted right, you're gonna get the same cash at the end. So it's not really a problem for you. It just makes you lose. It just makes you lose faster. Maybe if you had the wrong choice. For example, for the Nobel Prize, if you had a bet on any other candidate, then your position went to zero like a day before it should have. But in the end, it would have been the same. Then there are also some different kind of insider people that can uh, actually impact the resolution of the market. So, like you said, Brian Armstrong, like when he said all the world on the mentioned market at the end of the earnings call, that's
Yeah,
another kind of insider, and I think that's more of a problem, but it's more of a market selection problem.
yeah, it's so funny. Like Trump could have gotten increase his net worth like 50 times over if he just did what Brian Armstrong did. Uh, which was fun. And I think Brian Armstrong is still doing that. But that was funny when he just kind of mentioned everything in the earnings call. So I do think we're going to see more of that. I know for sure. You know, but
Yeah, probably, but I don't see it as a problem because in the end, the market is tied to something very real that is the event that you're trying to predict. So if someone buys a lot of shares on it or shorts it before it's impact the resolution. The kind of insider we are talking about right now, like the one betting on the Iran strike. I don't think he has power over this operation. I don't think he choose to attack Iran just to win the bet. I think it's someone that has the information, but the thing will happen anyway. So if you predicted right, well, GG, your shares pumped maybe 24 hours before they should have.
yeah, it's almost like mass incentivizing outcomes, which is actually another interesting use case for prediction markets. Is like these ways to almost incentivize um, actions from people. So
Yeah,
I do,
there's that. Yeah. But
yeah,
that was making me think because in the Russian army they have some system where if you capture some position more than a kilometer away from your edge position, you get a bonus. And I was thinking about that, like you can do the exact same thing with Polymarket. If you load enough know in a position, I'm sure you can get some soldiers to bet on it and go for the capture point really easily. And you can make a lot more than what they pay you as bonus too. So I think that may be a thing in the future, if not already.
well, Internet Child, it was great having you on, man. Some really good information in here. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff. I'm excited about the launch of Zeit.
Me too.
Definitely keep me updated on that. And yeah, yeah, I'm just um, yeah, just thankful you came on, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. All right. Well, let's talk later. Do this again sometime. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
wouldn't
see
be
what
against
happens.
it. I have a lot of things to
Hopefully,
say.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, we get some. Like, I would love to when you launch Zeit. I would love to get some of the founders of these funds to
Oh
come
yeah,
on.
of course. Yeah, I
That
will
would be
talk
really
to Ivan about it.
cool, cool, man. All right, Internet Child. Have a good one. Thanks for
Have a
coming
good
on.
one. See you.